After a rough stretch that included 2 straight losses and a brutal performance against the Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles were in desperate need of a rebound, and they got it in emphatic fashion against the Minnesota Vikings. It wasn't flawless football by any means, but this was by far the most complete game the Eagles have played all season. On both sides of the ball, we saw serious progress, and one thing is for sure. When Jalen Hurts is locked in like he was on Sunday, this offense becomes a nightmare to deal with. Against one of the best pass defenses in the league, Hurts came out firing and quickly silenced the doubters who had been waiting to pile on after one off game. Remember, it was just over a week ago that Hurts was getting shredded by media and fans alike. People were actually calling for him to be benched. Some even said Tanner McKee should get the start. That kind of talk didn't just disrespect Hurts. It completely ignored what he's done for this franchise. So what did Hurts do in response? He delivered what might have been the best performance of his entire career, throwing for over 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and achieving a perfect passer rating, the first in the NFL this season and just the 3rd in Eagles history. But beyond the numbers, what made this game so impressive was how the Eagles attacked the Vikings defense. On the very first drive, facing a 4th and 4, Hurts hit A.J. Brown on a deep ball down the left sideline for a 37-yard touchdown. It was a statement throw and a sign of what was to come. Not only did Hurts look decisive and accurate, but the protection from the offensive line gave him the time to make plays. That moment between Hurts and Brown wasn't just chemistry, it was confidence. You could see it in Hurts' body language. He motioned for Brown to go deep, the protection held, and boom, touchdown. That's a veteran quarterback seeing the game clearly and executing at an elite level. Now, the offense did hit a dry spell after that, going 3 and out on the next 3 drives and not scoring again in the first half. But instead of falling apart or going conservative, the team came out of halftime with a plan, and it paid off immediately. On the first drive of the second half, the Eagles went play action and hit Devonta Smith for a 79-yard touchdown, the longest of his career. And here's the best part. That play wasn't just called by the coaches. It was requested by Smith himself at halftime. He saw something in the Vikings' defensive looks and told the staff about it. When they called it, he was ready, and Hurts delivered a perfect strike. That touchdown not only flipped the momentum, but revealed a crucial shift in the Eagles' offensive philosophy. For the first time in weeks, they committed to running plays from under center, something Hurts himself reportedly pushed for earlier in the week. After running just 26 under-center plays in the previous 4 games combined, they ran 20 against the Vikings alone. That change opened up the play-action game, forced the defense to stay honest, and gave Hurts clearer throwing lanes. In fact, Hurts went 4 for 4 on play-action throws for over 120 yards and a touchdown. Those are game-changing numbers, especially against a top-tier pass defense. And this change didn't just benefit Hurts. It helped Smith have the best game of his career, finishing with 9 catches for a league-leading 183 yards and a touchdown. A lot of people forget that on most other teams in the league, Smith would easily be the number 1 option. He rarely complains about touches or targets, but when his number is called, he delivers. And this was one of those games where his route running, football IQ, and timing were on full display. A.J. Brown also had himself a day, catching 4 passes for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. Together, he and Smith combined for over 300 receiving yards, numbers you almost never see from a single duo in one game. And yet, the offense still had moments where they had to grind. One drive was saved by Hurts making magic on 3rd and 13, escaping pressure and hitting Brown along the sideline to move the chains. Another saw him calmly read the defense and find Smith again over the middle for a big gain. And then came the deep shot to Brown up the seam, another beauty that capped off an explosive performance. But the real dagger came late in the game. After a Vikings field goal made it a 1-score game again, Hurts checked into a different play at the line on 3rd and 9, saw the coverage he wanted, and launched a bomb down the sideline to A.J. Brown for 45 yards. That throw effectively ended the game and was the latest example of Hurts being fully in control of the offense. From play checks to pocket awareness, to making tight window throws, this was MVP-caliber quarterbacking. And this came on a night when the Eagles' run game once again struggled. Outside of a few solid gains early, the ground game was mostly a non-factor. Saquon Barkley finished with just 44 yards on 18 carries, And as a team, the Eagles managed only 45 rushing yards total. That's not just about poor execution. Defenses are loading up to stop the run, and the Eagles haven't had an answer until now. With the shift toward play action and under-center looks, they've finally found a way to punish defenses for selling out. That could be the key to unlocking this offense over the second half of the season. Of course, not everything was perfect. Kevin Patullo's play calling still had its questionable moments. Yes, we saw improvement. Hurts' pass chart looked far more diverse, and Smith's route tree was finally used to its full potential. But there were still stretches where the route concepts looked flat, and guys weren't getting separation. That said, many of the biggest plays weren't drawn up perfectly. They were the result of Hurts or the receivers making something happen. The deep ball to Smith? That was Smith calling his own number. The third and long conversion to Brown? That was Hurts doing Hurts things. The game-sealing check to Brown late? That was QB1 taking full command. So while credit is due to the coaching staff for making adjustments, it's the players who deserve the spotlight. And let's not forget the defense. While the offense was the headline, the defense quietly played one of its best games of the season. They were physical, they made timely plays, and they got contributions from guys up and down the roster. Early in the second quarter, it was Jalen Hurts, a name that's starting to heat up, who jumped to throw from Carson Wentz and took it back to the house for a pick six. That's a play he had dropped in a similar situation last week. So for him to bounce back and make it now, that's growth. And he wasn't done. Hunt had 5 pressures, 3 QB hits, and 2 hurries. Easily his best game as a pro. Then there was Andrew Makuba, the rookie safety, grabbing his second interception of the season on a reckless throw from Wentz. Even though it was a gift, it was a great read and a confident play. But maybe the most encouraging signs came from the linebacker room. Zach Bond led the team with 10 tackles and continues to prove he belongs in the starting lineup. And then there's Nakobe Dean. After missing a chunk of the season, he finally got meaningful snaps and made the most of them. With J.A.D. Campbell moving out to the edge more often, Dean slid into the inside linebacker role and looked right at home. He racked up 6 tackles, 1 for loss, and was among the highest-graded defenders on the field. It's the kind of performance that can build momentum and confidence for a young player who's been itching to make an impact. The pass rush showed up too. Moro Ojomo and Josh Sweat each notched key sacks in the red zone, killing promising Vikings drives and forcing them to settle for field goals. In fact, that was one of the most underrated stories of this game, the Eagles' red zone defense. Minnesota reached the red zone 6 times, but came away with just 1 touchdown. 5 field goals. That's how you win close games. And just when things were starting to click defensively, the Eagles might be getting another massive boost, and not from just anyone, but from a true Philly legend. Reports came out before kickoff that Brandon Graham, yes, that Brandon Graham, is seriously considering coming out of retirement and returning to the team. The locker room's reaction says it all. Every player asked about it lit up at the idea of BG coming back. His energy, leadership, and experience are unmatched, and he can still ball. Last year proved that. So if he's in shape and ready, don't be surprised if the Eagles welcome him back with open arms very soon. One of the wildest parts of this Eagles win is how dominant they looked through the air, despite their ground game continuing to be almost non-existent. It's one thing to beat a team when you're balanced, but when your rushing attack is putting up just 45 yards in total, and your lead back has 18 carries for only 44 yards, that's a red flag. The offensive line wasn't consistently creating holes, Saquon Barkley couldn't get going, and overall, it just felt like the Eagles were fighting for every inch on the ground. For a team that has traditionally built its identity on the run, it's strange to see them struggle like this for weeks on end. Defenses are stacking the box, loading up to stop the run, and daring the Eagles to beat them through the air. The thing is, against the Vikings, Philly did exactly that. Still, it's hard to feel fully confident in the rushing attack turning things around anytime soon. This wasn't a one-week issue. This has been a pattern. And even with the offensive shift toward under-center snaps and more creative play action, there's still a fundamental lack of rhythm when it comes to running the ball. Some of that is on the players. The execution simply hasn't been good enough. But a lot of it has to fall on the coaching staff. Kevin Patullo in particular continues to be a question mark. Yes, he deserves credit for being part of the group that finally implemented changes like more under-center looks and better use of play action. but he's also one of the reasons the offense has looked so basic and predictable at times. For example, look at Hurts' performance against the Vikings. A lot of his biggest plays were a direct result of improvisation, recognition, or just flat-out elite execution. That first touchdown, a fourth-down shot that Hurts and Brown made happen. The deep ball to Smith, a call that came straight from the receiver himself. The 3rd-and-13 conversion, that was Hurts avoiding a sack, keeping the play alive, and making something happen. Even the game-ending bomb to Brown was a check Hurts made at the line. Those are plays made by elite players, not necessarily elite play calls. And while that's encouraging in the sense that you know your quarterback and wide receivers can carry you when needed, it also puts a spotlight on the continued inconsistencies in scheme and game planning. This isn't just about one good game. It's about building something sustainable. If the Eagles want to go deep into the playoffs, they need to find offensive balance. They need to get the run game going. They need to make sure Hurts isn't always the one pulling rabbits out of hats. That being said, Sunday's performance was a step in the right direction. Hurts' throws were sharp. His decisions were quick. His chemistry with both Brown and Smith was off the charts. There was a different energy to him. You could see it in the way he commanded the offense, in the way he communicated at the line, and even in his body language. There's a confidence, almost a quiet fire, that comes out when he feels in rhythm. And when Hurts is in that mode, the entire offense feeds off of it. You see the receivers playing with more urgency, the offensive line locking in. Even the coaching staff seems to open up the playbook just a little more when they know QB1 is feeling it. And that's what makes this game feel like a potential turning point. Not just because the Eagles got a win, but because they finally looked like a team capable of executing adjustments. Because they trusted their star players to make big plays. Because the defense stepped up when it needed to. Because they played with fire, and for the first time in weeks, looked like a complete football team again. Now, on the defensive side, there's just as much to be encouraged about. The front seven came to play, especially in moments that mattered. Jalen Hurts had the game of his young career, not just with that pick six early in the second quarter, but with the way he impacted the game throughout. He was all over the field, pressuring the quarterback, flying around the edges, dropping into coverage when needed. This is exactly the kind of leap the Eagles were hoping to see from him. And if this performance is any sign of what's coming, it could be a game changer for the defense moving forward. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments, and let's talk birds. In a move that has instantly become the talk of the NFL world, Philadelphia Eagles general manager Howie Roseman has reportedly pulled off yet another jaw-dropping trade, leaving fans, analysts, and rival teams scrambling to process the fallout. Sources close to the team suggest that this isn't just any trade. It's the kind that makes ESPN anchors choke on their coffee and social media explode in real time. Details remain sketchy, but insiders claim the Eagles have sent a combination of high-profile players and draft picks to an as-yet unconfirmed team in exchange for a marquee star who could change the franchise's trajectory overnight. While names are being tightly guarded, speculation is already running rampant, with pundits debating whether Roseman has finally pulled off the deal of the decade, or whether this is another high-risk maneuver that could backfire spectacularly. Fans are buzzing, naturally. The Eagles' official channels have been strangely quiet, fueling the rumor mill even further. Meanwhile, every ESPN show from morning to prime time has had analysts dissecting every possible angle. How the trade impacts the roster, which positions will see a shakeup, and what this means for the team's championship ambitions. Twitter is ablaze, with hashtags trending that hadn't even existed an hour before the news leaked. This isn't Roseman's first headline-grabbing move, of course. The GM has built a reputation for bold, sometimes controversial trades that either redefine the Eagles' identity or leave critics shaking their heads. But the timing and scale of this latest deal have even his harshest detractors pausing for a moment. Could this be the strategic masterstroke that finally pushes the Eagles into undisputed elite status? Or another daring bet that carries serious risk? Regardless of the outcome, one thing is certain. Howie Roseman knows how to make headlines. As the NFL world waits with bated breath for official confirmation and the first glimpses of the new roster, speculation continues to run wild. Fans and analysts alike are preparing for a whirlwind of reactions, debates, and probably a few memes that will dominate the sports internet for days. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.